Marcus Chen had never believed in monsters, myths, or anything that couldn't be explained by science. As a wildlife photographer specializing in apex predators, he had spent the last 15 years documenting the behavior of everything from wolves in Yellowstone to tigers in India. His work had been featured in National Geographic, BBC Wildlife, and a dozen other prestigious publications. He prided himself on his rationality, his patience, and his ability to capture images of elusive predators that others could only dream of. But nothing in his extensive experience had prepared him for what his dashboard camera would capture on that foggy morning in the remote backcountry of the Cascade Mountains. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The day had started like any other field expedition. Marcus had risen before dawn in his small cabin near the town of Verlo, Washington. The weather forecast had predicted clear skies, but a dense fog had rolled in overnight, blanketing the valleys and lower slopes in a ghostly white shroud. Weather in the Cascades was notoriously unpredictable, especially in late October, when seasons seemed to battle for dominance. One day could bring brilliant sunshine, the next a snowstorm. Marcus didn't mind the fog. In fact, he welcomed it. He was tracking a particularly elusive mountain lion, a massive male that local rangers had dubbed Phantom for its ability to appear and disappear without a trace. The big cat had been fitted with a tracking collar the previous spring, but had developed a knack for staying just out of sight of human observers. Marcus had been in the area for 3 weeks already, catching only fleeting glimpses of the cougar. But each day brought him closer, his understanding of the animal's territory and habits growing more refined. As he loaded his equipment into his modified Jeep Wrangler, Marcus ran through his mental checklist. 2 Canon EOS R5 bodies with different telephoto lenses, tripod, portable blind, water, food, first aid kit, satellite phone, bear spray, and, though he hated to bring it, the 10mm Glock handgun that his wife Elaine had insisted he carry when working in predator territory. Though he'd never had to use it in 15 years of fieldwork, the weight of it in his pack was a small concession for her peace of mind. The last item he checked was his dashboard camera. Unlike the typical consumer models designed to record traffic incidents, Marcus had invested in a high-end unit with excellent low-light capabilities and a wide field of view. He used it to document his approaches to shooting locations, sometimes capturing unexpected wildlife behavior along the way. He made sure it was properly secured and recording before putting the Jeep in gear and heading up the Forest Service road that would take him deep into the Cascades. The fog grew thicker as he climbed higher into the mountains, reducing visibility to less than 50 feet in some stretches. Marcus drove slowly, familiar enough with the road to know its sharp turns and steep drop-offs. The headlights carved a tunnel through the mist, occasionally reflecting in the eyes of small creatures, raccoons and rabbits, that quickly darted back into the undergrowth. An hour into the drive, the Forest Service road narrowed further, becoming little more than a rutted track through dense forest. Few people ventured this far into the backcountry, especially this late in the season. The solitude suited Marcus perfectly. Out here, he could focus entirely on his work, on understanding and documenting the lives of predators that most people would never see outside of a zoo. His destination was a small meadow near Phantom's latest GPS location. The mountain lion had been in the same general area for 3 days now, suggesting a recent kill and a temporary den. If Marcus could set up his blind before full daylight, he might finally get the shots he had been pursuing for weeks. The Jeep crested a small rise, and Marcus eased off the gas as the road descended steeply on the other side. Through the fog, he could just make out the outline of the meadow about a quarter-mile ahead. He would park at the small turnout just before the clearing and hike in the rest of the way. As he approached the turnout, something large moved across the road about 100 yards ahead, momentarily visible in the headlights before disappearing into the trees. Marcus's foot instinctively moved to the brake, bringing the jeep to a gentle stop. Years of wildlife observation had trained him to react without startling potential subjects. "Phantom," he whispered to himself, squinting through the fog. The shape had seemed too large for a mountain lion, even one as substantial as Phantom. A bear was more likely, though most would be focused on hyperphagia, the intense pre-hibernation, feeding period, at lower elevations where food was more plentiful. Marcus reached for his binoculars and scanned the area where the figure had disappeared. The fog and the still dark forest made it impossible to see anything beyond the first few rows of trees. He checked the time, 5:43 a.m. Dawn was still about 40 minutes away. He had planned to be set up in his blind before first light, but this unexpected sighting had piqued his professional curiosity. He eased the jeep forward, moving at a crawl now, all senses alert. The dashboard camera continued recording, its small red light the only indication that it was functioning. Marcus had all but forgotten about it, focused entirely on what might be lurking in the foggy forest ahead. As he approached the spot where the figure had crossed, Marcus killed the engine but left the headlights on. The sudden silence was profound, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine and the distant call of a great horned owl. He reached for his camera, attaching his 100 to 400 millimeter lens, not his longest, but the most versatile for unknown shooting conditions. Stepping out of the jeep, Marcus closed the door quietly behind him. The morning air was cold and damp, the fog seeming to cling to his clothing. He stood motionless beside the vehicle, letting his eyes adjust, listening intently for any sound that might indicate the presence of a large animal. For several minutes, nothing moved. Then, from somewhere to his right, came the distinctive sound of branches breaking under significant weight. Whatever had crossed the road was still nearby, moving parallel to it through the forest. Slowly, camera ready, Marcus began to follow the sounds, staying close to the edge of the road for orientation in the fog. He had gone perhaps 50 yards when the breaking branches stopped. Marcus froze, raising his camera instinctively, though there was nothing yet to photograph. The silence stretched on, becoming almost oppressive in its completeness. Even the owl had gone quiet. Then it happened, a sound that didn't belong in these woods, in any woods. A deep, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate the very air around him. It wasn't a bear's growl or a cougar's snarl. It was something Marcus had never heard before. Something that triggered an instinctive fear response, so primitive that he found himself backing toward the jeep before he'd even made a conscious decision to move. As he retreated, his foot caught on an exposed root, sending him stumbling backward. He managed to keep his balance, but the camera swung wildly on its strap, and his sudden movement triggered a response from the forest. A blur of tawny fur exploded from the underbrush to his left, a mountain lion in full charge. Marcus had a split-second impression of massive shoulders, laid-back ears, and bared teeth before his training kicked in. He dropped to one knee, made himself as large as possible by spreading his arms, and shouted at the top of his lungs. The standard response to a predator charge. The mountain lion, Phantom it had to be, skidded to a stop less than 20 feet away, tail lashing, muscles bunched and ready to spring again. But the cougar wasn't looking at Marcus. Its attention was fixed on something in the forest to Marcus's right, something still hidden from his view by the dense trees and fog. That same unnatural growl came again, louder now, and with it the sound of heavy footsteps and breaking branches. Phantom's ears flattened completely against his skull, and the big cat let out a challenging scream that echoed through the silent forest. Marcus remained frozen in place, suddenly and acutely aware that he was caught between two apex predators. With painful slowness, he turned his head to look toward the source of the growl. At first, all he could make out was a dark shape in the fog. Then, as if the mist itself were giving birth to a nightmare, a figure emerged from between the trees. It was enormous, standing at least 8 feet tall on 2 legs, its broad shoulders nearly as wide as the massive Douglas fir it passed between. The creature was covered in dark, matted fur, with long arms that hung below its knees, ending in hands with disconcertingly human-like fingers. Its face was hidden in shadow beneath a sloped brow. But Marcus could feel its gaze upon him. Assessing, calculating, this wasn't the mindless monster of campfire tales. Whatever this being was, it possessed an intelligence that Marcus could sense even in this moment of paralyzing fear. "Impossible," he whispered, the wildlife photographer in him, desperately wishing his camera was ready, even as the rational human part of his brain struggled to process what he was seeing. The creature, there was no point denying it was a Sasquatch, turned its attention from Marcus to the mountain lion. Phantom had not backed down, his body still tense and ready to attack, despite being massively outweighed and outmatched in height. Marcus had studied cougar behavior long enough to know that the cat was not displaying normal territorial aggression. This was something different. The mountain lion seemed to harbor a specific hatred for the bipedal creature, almost as if they had a history. The Sasquatch made a sudden, aggressive movement forward, beating its chest once with fists the size of dinner plates. The sound echoed like a bass drum in the foggy clearing. Phantom responded with another screaming challenge, taking a single step forward, muscles coiling beneath his tawny coat. Marcus realized with a jolt of terror that he was about to witness a confrontation between a creature of legend and one of North America's most formidable predators, and he was standing directly between them. With exquisite care, he began edging backward toward the jeep, his movements slow and deliberate, trying to become invisible to the 2 predators focused intently on each other. His mind raced, calculating the distance to the vehicle, wondering if he could reach it before either creature noticed his movement. 10 yards. 8. 6. His back foot came down on the gravel at the edge of the road, the small, crunching sound, impossibly loud in the tense silence. Both the Sasquatch and Phantom turned their heads toward him simultaneously, their momentary standoff forgotten. Time seemed to freeze as Marcus found himself the focus of 2 predatory gazes. One familiar, but no less terrifying. The other from a creature he had not believed existed until moments ago. His survival instinct screamed at him to run, but years of wildlife experience told him that fleeing would trigger an immediate chase response from both animals. Instead, he forced himself to move with deliberate slowness, maintaining eye contact, first with Phantom, then briefly with the Sasquatch, hoping to communicate that he was neither threat nor prey. The mountain lion's tail lashed impatiently, and the Sasquatch shifted its weight with a sound like moving boulders. 4 yards to the jeep. 3. Marcus's hand closed around the door handle, cold metal against his sweating palm. With practiced movements, he opened the door just enough to slip inside, then closed it as quietly as possible behind him. Through the windshield, he could see both creatures still watching him, momentarily united in their attention to the human intruder. The dashboard camera continued recording, its lens capturing the entire scene. The mountain lion tense and ready to spring, the massive dark figure of the Sasquatch half hidden by fog and forest shadow. Marcus's hands trembled as he inserted the key in the ignition. He had a split-second decision to make: start the engine, potentially provoking both animals, or wait and hope they return to their standoff, giving him the wildlife footage of a lifetime. Professional curiosity won. Out over caution, Marcus remained perfectly still, one hand on the key, the other reaching slowly for the spare camera in the passenger seat. Neither the Sasquatch nor the mountain lion had moved, both still assessing him, still caught in their own interrupted confrontation. His fingers had just closed around the camera when Phantom suddenly turned his attention back to the Sasquatch, apparently deciding that the human was less of a threat or interest than the massive bipedal creature. The mountain lion's muscles bunched as it prepared to charge. The Sasquatch seemed to anticipate the attack. It shifted its stance, massive feet digging into the forest floor, arms raised not in fear but in readiness. The creature's face emerged from shadow as it tilted its head downward toward its feline challenger, revealing features that were at once brutish and disconcertingly human. A heavy brow, deep-set eyes that reflected the growing dawn light with an amber glow, a broad nose, and a mouth set in what Marcus could only interpret as grim determination. As the first rays of sunrise penetrated the fog, the mountain lion launched itself at the Sasquatch with explosive force, its powerful hindquarters propelling it through the air like a tawny missile. The Sasquatch roared, a sound so primal and powerful that Marcus felt it in his chest cavity and braced for impact. The dashboard camera recorded it all in perfect high-definition clarity: the leap, the collision, and the beginning of a battle between two creatures that should never have met in the modern world. A battle that would challenge everything Marcus Chen thought he knew about the natural order of the Cascade Mountains and the beings that called them home. The mountain lion slammed into the Sasquatch's chest with bone-jarring force. Any normal creature would have been knocked flat, but the massive bipedal being merely staggered back 2 steps, its enormous hands closing around Phantom's body mid-leap. For one suspended moment, Marcus watched through the windshield as the Sasquatch held the snarling cougar at arm's length, those disconcertingly human-like fingers digging into thick fur. Then, with a powerful motion, the creature hurled Phantom aside. The big cat twisted in mid-air, somehow landing on its feet, immediately crouching to spring again. Blood darkened the fur on its shoulder, where the Sasquatch's grip had broken skin. Marcus's photographer instincts overrode his fear. He raised his camera, framing the unbelievable confrontation through his telephoto lens. The dashboard camera continued recording the wider scene, but Marcus knew these close-up shots could be world-changing. Phantom circled warily, reassessing his opponent after the failed frontal attack. The Sasquatch turned to follow the cougar's movements, revealing a deep gash across its thigh where the mountain lion's claws had connected. Dark blood matted the creature's fur, but it showed no sign of pain or weakness. Rather than chase after the retreating cougar, the Sasquatch stood its ground, watching with intelligent eyes as Phantom continued circling. Marcus recognized classic predator behavior. The mountain lion was looking for a weakness, waiting for an opening. Without warning, Phantom darted forward again, this time aiming low, trying to hamstring the larger creature. The Sasquatch reacted with surprising agility, sidestepping and swinging one massive arm in a backhanded blow that caught the cougar mid-leap. The impact made a sickening thud that Marcus felt in his bones. Phantom tumbled across the forest floor, a tangle of fur and limbs, before scrambling back to his feet. The mountain lion was clearly injured now, favoring his right front leg, but his fighting spirit remained undiminished. He screamed a challenge that echoed through the misty forest. The Sasquatch responded with that same chest-resonating roar Marcus had heard earlier. Then it did something unexpected. It picked up a fallen branch, hefting the 6-foot length of wood like a club. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. Tool use. Deliberate, purposeful tool use. His scientific mind raced with the implications. Even as he continued photographing, this wasn't just some undiscovered primate. This was a being with advanced cognitive abilities, problem-solving skills, and strategic thinking. Phantom seemed momentarily confused by this development, his tail lashing nervously as he reassessed the threat. The mountain lion's instincts had not prepared it for an opponent that could extend its reach with tools. The standoff continued for several tense seconds, predator versus proto-human, two apex beings from different evolutionary paths. Then, the Sasquatch made a decisive move, charging forward with surprising speed for its size, the improvised club raised high. Phantom leaped sideways to avoid the attack, but the Sasquatch had anticipated this. It pivoted with unexpected grace, changing the club's trajectory mid-swing. The branch caught the mountain lion across the haunches with enough force to elicit a yowl of pain. The big cat rolled and came up snarling, blood now visible on its tawny coat in multiple places. But instead of retreating, Phantom seemed to grow more determined. Marcus had documented this phenomenon before. When cornered or seriously challenged, mountain lions sometimes fought with increased aggression rather than seeking escape. What happened next occurred so quickly that Marcus would need to review his photos later to fully understand the sequence. Phantom feinted left, then explosively changed direction, coming in under the Sasquatch's guard. The mountain lion launched upward toward the creature's throat, the killing move that had evolved to dispatch deer and elk with brutal efficiency. The Sasquatch's reflexes proved faster than Marcus could have imagined. It dropped the branch and raised both arms in a protective cross, catching the mountain lion before those deadly fangs could reach its throat. The momentum drove the Sasquatch backward until it slammed against a massive Douglas fir, the impact shaking snow from the higher branches. Man and beast remained locked together, the Sasquatch's powerful hands gripping the mountain lion's body, while Phantom's claws raked furiously at the creature's chest and arms. Blood from both combatants spattered the forest floor. With a roar that made the windows of the jeep vibrate, the Sasquatch found leverage against the tree trunk and pushed forward, breaking the cougar's hold. In a display of raw power that left Marcus breathless, it lifted the 180-pound mountain lion overhead. For one suspended moment, Marcus locked eyes with the Sasquatch across the clearing. In that gaze, he saw not mindless aggression, but calculated determination, and something else that chilled him to his core: recognition. The creature knew exactly what Marcus was, knew he was witnessing and recording this encounter. Then the moment broke as the Sasquatch slammed Phantom to the ground with earth-shaking force. The mountain lion lay stunned, and the massive bipedal creature raised a boulder-sized fist to deliver what would surely be a killing blow. But instead of striking, the Sasquatch hesitated, its chest heaving with exertion. It looked directly at Marcus again, then back at the mountain lion struggling to rise. In that moment, Marcus understood he was witnessing something beyond a simple territorial dispute, something with moral dimensions he hadn't expected from a creature of legend. Sasquatch stepped back, lowering its fist, allowing the injured mountain lion space. Phantom, displaying the survival instinct that had made cougars such successful predators, seized the opportunity. The big cat limped rapidly into the underbrush, disappearing into the fog-shrouded forest. Victory decided, the Sasquatch turned its full attention to Marcus. Their eyes met across the clearing. Scientist and subject, observer and observed, roles suddenly and disconcertingly reversed. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.